everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in these spectacular, sparkling studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. So this week, guys, look, I'm going to tell y'all, go ahead, do yourself a favor. Carve out about an hour. Sit down. You don't want to be moving around. You don't want to have distractions. This story is impactful. This story is going to be very difficult, but it's also going to be something that I feel like is going to be very helpful to a lot of folks to understand. You know, if y'all have watched me, you followed along, you listened to the episodes, you know that I'm a firefighter paramedic, retired from Memphis. I teach paramedic school. These are things that I've spoken on many, many times. And you know, there's the idea of what a paramedic is. If you've never worked in the career field, you've never been a first responder, you may have called 911, but there's something about the idea of what it takes to do the job every single day you wake up, to have the mentality. And I want you to understand something. It's not an easy job. I don't think anybody out there would think it is. It's physically demanding. It's mentally demanding. And so when you go into this line of work, I'll be quite honest with you. You don't always know that you're going to make it. You don't always know that you've got what it takes to do the job and do what it's going to require. You don't know that, but you go into it with the heart and the mind and the desire, because if you don't have a strong desire for it, you shouldn't be there, to help others. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I did that at a very early age. I was in my 20s and I decided this was the path I wanted to go. So getting out of the Air Force, I started down that path, studying, doing everything I could to get on a fire department, eventually led to me getting my paramedic. Well, that's where this week's guest comes in. So early in my career as a paramedic, I did find myself in a tough spot, going through some very tough calls. And this individual, we have a backstory, and we've never spoken about it together in 20 plus years. So today we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all aspects of EMS. So if you are somebody that either enjoys, hearing the stories of EMS, or you yourself have worked in it or still work in this, I know this is going to be something that resonates with you. So my guest this week is Miss Teresa Silvestri. She is a long-time paramedic. She got into that. I know I said that very, like it's as though you're very old. It's not like that, but you have done this career for a very long time. And yes. Our paths crossed in South Haven, and you are now retired. Is that correct? Or you work part-time?
I'm not retired, but I'm not working at the moment.
Got you. So you have been in EMS for decades and decades. We're going to talk about that. You're still here in the area. So at this time, let's welcome in my guest, Miss Teresa Silvestri. How are you doing, ma'am?
I am doing wonderful.
Thank you for coming out here.
No problem.
The weather's nice.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah, and that's not always been the case. I speak on this microphone about what's going on the day I come in. It's been hot lately.
Oh, believe me, I run at 12 noon in the afternoon.
Yes.
When it's hot.
Okay, well, so then making it not easy on yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that real fast before we jump into the EMS world. So y'all know also that I am a runner, a plus size runner, and I'm out there making the things happen. So you just shared with me before we started, what is your run streak?
78 days right now.
Of running 3 miles a day.
3 to 3.5 miles a day.
That is awesome. What clicked and made you think this is going to be my streak?
I've just, right now, with everything that's been going on, this is my stress relief.
This is how you get away.
I get out, no music. No, I run by myself.
Okay.
But I run in my neighborhood. I stop and talk to neighbors. I love it. I mean, it's a great stress relief.
Yes, and I would say healthy.
My resting heart rate is in the 40s.
Nice. That is good. Yes. I can't say mine is because I'm always ramped up.
This is true. You're always on.
Yes, spaz. But it's like, heart rate's in the 110s. Is that okay for you? I'm like, I feel fine. I feel absolutely fine right now. So you've got into EMS. So let's talk a little bit about that. If you would, share with my listeners where you're from, where you grew up, and then how you got into EMS.
I am actually originally from Memphis. I grew up in Frazier.
Okay.
Moved down to South Haven when I was in second grade, and I have been down here. I moved back to Memphis for maybe 3 years when I got married and that, but we moved down here because it's a lot safer. A lot nicer, and to be close to family.
Yeah, and so you moved to South Haven. What year was that?
We started down here in 1969.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, a while back.
I've been here when Goodman Road was
gravel.
I
remember that, actually.
Airways was gravel. Oh, yeah, Briargate Country Club.
Yeah, so you were moving to the country when you moved to South Haven back then.
Yeah.
Now it's a small city, big city, big city.
Big city. we lived in South Haven for a while, then we moved to Horn Lake, and I like it there. And I mean, I've been there almost 30 years now.
So did you have brothers, sisters?
I've got a brother, an older brother who lives in Germantown. I had a sister who was killed in a car wreck at the age of 29 years old.
How old were you at that time? Was she older or younger than
She's
you?
old. I'm the baby.
You're the baby.
I'm the baby.
Okay. And so how much older was she?
She would have been 65 this year. Her and my husband were the same age.
Okay, so just a few years older.
Yeah.
Okay. And so growing up in South Haven,
Yes.
what was your influences? What was the things you thought about becoming or doing when you got older?
I always wanted to be a veterinarian, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved animals. I still love animals. But I went to Mississippi State and
Oh, that's a big school for that.
yeah, and I was doing great. And when I was down there, they didn't have the vet school wasn't as good as it is now, but you had to have connections to get in. And of course, we didn't have any, and the money was going to be outrageous. So I ended up getting out of that and went into pre-nursing. I did all the nursing classes up until the clinicals, and then I got pregnant and had a child.
So how old were you when you decided to make that transition from possible vet school to nursing?
I'm going to say 20-ish.
Early 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Dr. Pole? Dr. Pole.
Oh,
Peel.
yeah.
Yeah. So are you pretty? I'm always amazed by him.
Oh, yeah.
It's a squirrel moment, but you're just talking about veterinarian. That's the only guy that comes to my mind when I think vet.
I know, and he is so good at it.
He's amazing. He's
Yes.
almost like a savant.
Yeah.
Like he just can pick up a chicken and be like, well, this is what's going on here. And he's got his little
He's the
accent
Dr.
going.
Doolittle.
He really is. He really is. So anyways, when you said vet, that's where my mind
Yeah,
squirreled to for a minute.
I mean, that's what I wanted to be. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was at Mississippi State, it was pre-vet, pre-med.
Yeah. And hey, look, I wish that I had some vet skills because I have a small farm and it could have saved me a lot of money over the years, but that's
yeah.
another story.
Oh, yeah.
But
But I mean, I've always been interested in helping somebody,
Yeah.
whether it be animal. You know, I was in Girl Scouts. I've done softball. I mean, I've done it, you know.
did you have family members that were in the healthcare EMS
No.
type?
My mom was a secretary. My dad was a detective.
Oh, who was he a detective with?
Well, he worked for Pinkerton Detective Agency back in the day.
Yeah.
And then he left that and went to being a salesman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a hard transition.
I'm the only one in my family that went to college.
You're the only one that went to college.
Yes.
So then clearly you're the only one that got your paramedic or anything else because that's
Yeah.
requirement. I know that much
Yeah.
since I teach it.
My brother's at the same place he's been since he was 17 years old,
Oh, wow.
and he's 67.
What does he do?
Makes louvers for houses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I'm going to say this. It is a different generation. I don't think that that's profound in statement, but I know personally teaching at the college, a lot of students come through and they have like a 5-year plan and then they
Yeah.
look to transition out. They're not thinking of anything as career minded. So even if they're coming to paramedic school, they're seeing that as a stepping stone to something else. They're
Yeah.
not looking to make fire their thing for the next 30 years.
No.
It's a different mindset for a lot of folks now.
When I went into EMS and that, it was always EMS. I mean, we had the chance to transition to fire, but I'm like, I respect the ones that can run in there. I'll stand outside and take care of them.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to I didn't even want to, after I got into EMS, I didn't want to go back to nursing school.
Wow.
I like this more.
So let's talk about that real fast. So you're in nursing school. How far did you get before
All I had
got-
left was clinicals.
So you had done all the didactic,
Yes.
and
I
you were
had
just
done,
sitting on clinical to finish.
and then I just decided to have my family while I was young. That way, when my baby was 18, I would still be young enough to enjoy the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very forward-thinking young person.
Yeah. I mean, I had my goal to be done having kids by the age of 25.
How old were you when you got married?
21.
Wow. So yeah, you're kicking it off, and you're even thinking retirement base, family base. You've got some. I would say that those boxes often don't even develop much less get checked until people are late 20s, early 30s,
No.
and then they start thinking about how they're going to develop their life. So you were coming straight out of teenage years
Yeah.
with a game plan.
Yeah, because I figured by the age of 25, you add 18 to that, 43, I can still enjoy the world.
Man, you know what, guys? That's what happens when you don't use Common Core. So you don't use Common Core math. All of a sudden, it makes a lot more sense.
I hate Common Core.
Yeah, I know. That's
Don't
why I
even
throw
get-
those jokes in there occasionally.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you get into EMS, and obviously you fall in love with it. What was different about EMS versus nursing?
Nursing was more about paperwork. I mean, literally, everything was dot, 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 dot. And in EMS, you had to think. You didn't know what you were, in nursing, you walk into a room, you know what's wrong with that person. But EMS, it's like, okay, here's the script or whatever, you figure it out.
Pure chaos, and it's on you.
I loved it back then.
Yeah.
I mean, chaos was good.
One of the things I tell my students going into paramedic school is, it's a lot of times in our life, if we face an obstacle that's so difficult we can't wrap our head around, it's easy to walk away from and say, well, it just whatever. But we don't have that option in EMS. We can't pull up and be like, God, this is really hard. Good luck to you, and then walk off. You are the one.
Yeah.
That has to figure out how to mitigate the situation. It's not to say you can't call in reinforcements. Of course, we do call in first responders, other stuff. But at the end of the day,
it's on you.
They're looking at you.
Yes.
All eyes on you.
And what I liked about it when I first started, down at Baptist DeSoto, they had Dr. Lewis, Dr. Thompson, and all them down there. You could go in.
You could have a conversation with them, and they would tell you stuff.
They would, yes. Yeah. And I'm the kind that I don't like the unexplained. I have to know why things. Like when I had my first child, when they wanted to do the epidural, I said, "Let me see the needle." He goes, "No, you don't want to see it." I said, "I have a fear of the unknown. You show it to me, and I'm fine." He goes, "Okay," and he showed it. I said, "Okay."
That is unique. Teresa, I'm not going to say that's everybody. Sometimes I just don't want to know. Ignorance is bliss in some areas for me.
I can't.
But that's not you.
I have to know.
That's fascinating. So clearly you get into the EMS, and did you ever think that you would maybe go back and get those clinicals so you would have your RN and paramedic? Because that's a thing a lot of folks end up doing.
No, because I don't know. It was just, something was not right. I like the down and dirty, not the nice and clean. I'm a tomboy. Yeah. I always have been, always will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just give me the dirty stuff.
So you get into the EMS stuff, and then, look, let's be honest. And given a little timeline, if and depending on what books you read, what historical backgrounds you look at, EMS really, its inception started in about the mid 60s, late 60s, and then you get into the 70s, and it really started to flourish. So like they were testing it, if you want to call it that, in the 60s, and they had some hearses, and the whole idea was pull up, pick up, go. There's no treatment on scene.
Yeah.
And then things started to develop in the 70s. And of course, the TV show that I was captivated by, I think you would know. Emergency, obviously, Johnny and Roy. So that was a huge impact on all of us older folks, at least, anyways, which is one of the things I know we're there.
No, we're not.
Well, okay, fair enough. I will take that. Thank you.
We're 75 and under is young.
That's young. I will agree to that to a lot of extents, to be honest with you. Your mind definitely doesn't want to believe into it. So that's why I do things like jumping off a boat, and I shouldn't. So anyways, there's that. So you fall in love with EMS, which I will tell you, just to relate that a little bit, going into fireside out of the military, I was all fire, and I never thought I would be, and this is true, I never thought I was smart enough to become an EMT basic. I didn't think I had that. And it just seemed really hard to me. But what happens with people is when you find something that you're captivated by, you love, you develop this passion for, you obsess over it, it's not as hard.
No.
And even though I put in a lot of hard work, I was so into it, it made it easy.
Yeah.
And I made straight A's, which blew me away too. That was not who I was. I was never a straight A person. And so here it is. I find this love, this passion, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can get an EMT basic. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could be a paramedic.
Yeah.
And when I got into paramedic school, it was over with. It was like, this is my calling.
It's an adrenaline rush.
It is. And it's not just the idea that you're going into danger, but it is what you just said. And that is you're doing something for somebody in their hardest, worst moment, and you're able to bring hope to them.
Right.
And when you see that work out, oh my gosh, it's like you can't put that in a bottle.
But when it doesn't work out,
it's the lowest of lows.
Right.
You have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
That's where I got started running at the fire department.
So we're going to get to that part now. So here you are. And I think I've built a pretty good basis. If you love it, you love it. And it's not for everybody. And for those that it's for, understand the ride's going to be rocky at times. And you're going to need to find some outlets. And I think we both understand this in our career field.
Anybody, in any field.
In any field. You got to find a healthy outlet.
Right. I read and I run.
And people don't always do that. They go to drugs, they go to alcohol, and those are the negatives. So it's good to find a positive something, because you need that thing to get away from the tough times.
Yes.
So what year was it that was South Haven your first paid job?
Yes, I started there in 91 as a volunteer.
Oh, wow.
Went from volunteer to part-time to full-time.
So
And at first it was City of South Haven Ambulance. And then we got taken over by the fire department.
So then y'all got brought into the fire department. So
Right.
the fire department was there, y'all were separate entities.
Yes.
Which was actually a lot of places
Yeah.
around the country.
It made really no sense, but they finally figured that out.
Yeah. So then you get over there, you had to be a pioneer, right? You had to be one of the first women.
No, there were actually several before me.
Renee?
Renee, Molly Sossaman,
Okay.
Gigi.
Gigi, that was my partner for a minute. You remember that?
Oh God, yeah.
Bless her.
remember.
I love her though, but she's a wild squirrel.
She's a unique person.
I love her though. She
Yes.
is good. She is
Yes, I just saw her a couple weeks ago
Did
at
you
the
really?
ambulance reunion that we had.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes,
And
it was
what
good.
about Sharon?
Sharon Miller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a couple more that was pioneers, I think.
Glenda
Glenda.
Robertson or McLaren? Or no, Glenda McLaren was her first name.
Yeah.
I just went brain dead.
So I'm pointing out a couple of those, and
Yeah.
because you guys were pioneers to EMS, you were pioneers to the North Mississippi
Yeah, because when
ambulance
we
service.
went to the fire department, they had to. Oh, women. We had different. EMS ended up having their own different sleeping quarters.
Yeah.
Because Sylvia was there too, Sylvia Cox.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And then when I came on, and I was only on South Haven for about 9 months before I went to Memphis, and it was in late 2001, middle 2001 when I got over there, and it was still, even though it had been 10 years in the making,
Yes.
there was still that hard line in the sand a lot of times about fire versus EMS, and the cross training really wasn't always there.
I think there always will be.
There could be. It depends on how the department is developed and then who takes over.
Right.
Because I have known some smaller departments where paramedics are now the chiefs.
Yes.
The blend is different. So the mindset and the culture has to change, but it takes a while.
It did. It's finally changed.
Yeah, it can get there.
Yeah.
So here you are, 1991, you're working in EMS, and you had no prior people that was in this, so you don't know what to expect.
I had no clue. My very first call was a man that shot himself at a cemetery at Twin Oaks
Wow.
at his daughter's grave.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. No blood. None whatsoever.
You make this call, what goes through your mind?
I was like, oh my God, if this is the first one, God forbid what's going to be next. I mean, it was, but me being me, I was asking questions because when we got to the hospital, I was like, why is there no blood? Gunshot wound you should see. Nope, he did it at the right time at the right spot, according to Dr. Lewis.
How about that?
Yeah.
And so who was your partner? Do you remember?
I was working with Robert Hill at that time.
So did you have any questions about if you were going to be able to do this job after that first call?
No,
Okay.
I think that addicted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even recall my first call because I was a volunteer at Walls
Oh,
on my very first call, but I wasn't a paramedic. I was pre-EMT basic. So I was in the classes for EMT basic while I was working on Walls.
oh yeah.
And I just I can't remember any significant calls for a long time. And then like the first real call that was like my eyeballs are wide open and the hair standing up on my neck. Was my first full arrest, which this was deeper. I was probably there for a few months volunteering before that one happened. And it was Debbie Lynn and Brad Phillips were the medics.
Oh my God.
And look, they were superstars, right?
Yeah, I love
and
Debbie Lynn.
And I know, me too. And if y'all knew her back in her day,
She was a trip.
you want to talk about rough and tumble?
Yeah.
She was
yeah.
rough and tumble.
I would take her any day of the week as a
Amen.
medic on me, baby.
Amen.
At that time, we all had those, there's only a few people that can touch me. She was one of the ones.
She was one. Yep,
Yeah.
she was. And so that was great tutelage, right?
Oh, yeah. She was great.
And her and Brad, they just worked this call and kind of like with you where you asked the questions and stuff and at the end of it all. And it was an older gentleman. So it wasn't like it wasn't so traumatic. It was a heart attack.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just one of those things, part of life cycle. And I get out of that and I'm just thinking, I don't know if I can do all that because they were doing so many things and it was all moving so fast. And you see drugs being pushed and tubes being put down the throat. And I'm just like, can't do all those things. I can't remember all this stuff. But it's funny how that happens.
Yeah, but when I started, I don't think anybody in DeSoto County was even intermediate yet. I think we were just getting ready to go.
It wasn't long after. It was 1999 was whenever I was in my very inception of stuff. So it hadn't been long after you had been in there.
Yeah, because I got my medic in 97.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. So you get your medic in 97 and you were intermediate.
Before that.
And how long were you in intermediate? Which people that don't understand that's like where you can start an IV and that's like, and maybe a couple drugs, not much of anything back then.
Yeah. Let's see, I was 91. I think it was 93 or 94 because I took the crash course down here in Hernando that Glenn taught.
Okay. Glenn Fault. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of ties here, by the way. You know,
Glenn and Mary.
Glenn and Mary. You know, I work for Mary now. And Glenn, when he retired, that's the spot I took.
Yeah. Those are both my
those are all the
intermediate and paramedic teachers.
So you got into this in 1991, and to build part of the story here, and you know we're going to talk about this. We're going to go into a few other things before we go to the break, but you said that your mom and sister were in a bad car wreck in 1989.
1989. My mom, they were hit head on Airways and Homes, and it killed my sister. And my mom had like 32 broken bones, and they didn't expect her to live, but she did. But that's what got me into this.
So after 1989, which a traumatic moment like that, you know, I think that maybe there has to be something that clicks with you that you want to be a part of the solution.
Yes.
And that had to be the situation, is that you see what your mom went through.
Oh, yeah.
And you think to yourself, I want to help people that have these things happen to them.
Yep.
And then you get into it. And so some people that might scare them away, but that wasn't the case with you. What did your mom think when you said that? You said, hey, look, I want to be a paramedic.
She was excited. She goes, you know, do what you want to do and what's going to make you happy.
What about your husband?
He didn't really care. I mean, he was, you know, whatever's going to make you, because I was a secretary at the time and, you know, it was, it's a job. Mm-hmm. But luckily, where I worked, I was a secretary for a fire investigator. So I got to study and do everything while I was at work if I had all my work done. So, yeah, it worked out.
Who was one of your best, or I say your best, maybe that's not the right word. Who was one of your most memorable mentors when you first got into EMS then?
Leslie Manning.
Leslie Manning? Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to say McKnight for a minute.
No, Leslie Manning. Leslie Manning and Robert Hill.
Okay.
Those two I learned a lot from.
Yeah. So that's one of the things, too, that I think can make or break a person that's brand new into EMS. And right now, for all of you out there that are watching that are brand new, boy, are you feeling these words I'm about to say. You get to the station where there's toxicity. People are always pessimistic about things. They're talking bad about the job or what's going on. It can sour that enthusiasm that you need to learn the job first and then to be able to perform the job. So that's why I ask this, because it's so important that you surround yourself with good people that care, that want to pass on knowledge and experience to you.
And Robert did. He was one of the best.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad we're able to talk about that.
He went to Memphis.
He did?
Yeah.
What year? Do you remember?
No, not really. Sometime in the 90s.
What was his last name?
Robert Hill.
It's not ringing a bell, but...
Yeah. He was an elder. I mean...
He was a little older.
A little older. Yeah, but he was... The first thing he's told me, he goes, if you can't hear a blood pressure in the back of this unit, tell me. He goes, don't fake it.
Yeah.
I was like,
It's good mentorship.
Yeah.
That's important. And that's one of the things I try to stress to my students is find people that are not soured by the job and learn from them, because it's real easy to find somebody that's pessimistic and everything that you do or they say this is just wrong and it's just negative, and that's going to tear you down. You're not going to be able to perform for very long.
No, you can't.
So here we are in 1989, life-changing accident. You decide to go into EMS. You get into it in 1991. And 10 years later, you mentioned to me that your niece...
In August of 2001, my niece was killed in a car wreck at the age of 18.
When was she around here?
She lived up in Munford.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so at that moment right there in your life, what's going on? Your sister, now your niece.
My sister, now her daughter, and it's like, really, what, you know... I was upset. I mean, needless to say, I was mad at the time because the person that hit her should not have even been out on the road because they were on a suspended license. But, it was like, we got to go on. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then the next month it was the Twin Towers.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, September 2001.
I was sitting in the allergist office when those Twin Towers were hit.
I try to explain that to my students that there'll be moments in life where you'll always remember where you were and what you were doing.
Oh, I do.
And you were at the allergist office.
Yeah.
And how'd you see it on TV?
Yeah, because I had to be a patient. I was taken to Baptist DeSoto for an anaphylactic reaction.
Oh my gosh.
We don't know what for because I've had 3 cents and we don't know what I'm allergic to.
Still don't know what you're being exposed to. Wow.
No.
Oh, that's good. Do you carry around an EpiPen?
No, too expensive.
Okay, well then I guess I need to keep that in the back of my mind in case I see you over there gasping for air.
Yeah.
Go find me some Epi real quick.
Please do.
Yes, absolutely. So then 2001, the Twin Towers get hit and there's all this tragedy and trauma around you. And here we are in EMS and you're seeing it and you know that you're a part of this.
Yes.
So it's like, when is it going to come my way?
Believe me, that's what I was thinking.
Sure, me too.
I was scared. I mean, I was really... because it's like I've got kids. Let's not let something happen around here.
I was at the Walls Fire Department when I saw it happening. And I was in the den, and all I kept saying was, "Those guys got to get in there. They got to get in there." And then it collapsed, and I'm like, I would have been dead.
Yeah,
because I would have been in there.
Yeah,
there's no chance that I wouldn't have been if I was up there. And that's what you immediately. It's like reality moments, and it's like. That would have been tragic.
Yes, it would.
For me. I'm just saying, but it's tragic for them. I'm just saying, for me, that it would have been over.
I'm like you, though. I couldn't have stood there and done nothing. I'm sorry. It's not in my nature. That's
not it. You got to make a move. You got to make a move.
You have to do it.
So we are at that point where we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about the hardest part of our story today. And I say hardest because a lot of this is tough to talk about. And I'm very thankful that Ms. Teresa agreed to come on and us discuss these things. And I think that there is healing in discussion to begin with. And then whenever you have a clear picture and understanding, sometimes it does put pieces together that maybe you wondered about, and that brings closure. So all of that will come together. And we're going to do that as soon as we come back, so you don't want to go anywhere.
A great opportunity awaits. The Motivate with Coach Camp podcast is now in its second season, and we are excited to say that we have listeners all over the United States and in 19 countries. If you have a company and you're interested in some very affordable advertising, while at the same time supporting a great cause, please go to motivatewithcoachcamp.com and fill out that sponsorship page, and we'll get right back to you. You can support the podcast through donations on Venmo at Motivate with Coach Camp. Thank you to all the listeners and guests who have blessed this podcast with their engagement and involvement.
All right, everybody, and welcome back. As you guys know, if you've been watching the first half, and I know you have been, we've been here with Miss Teresa Silvestri, longtime EMS professional, paramedic, worked at South Haven for many years, and now does some transfer service.
Yeah.
Off and on, and still involved in EMS.
Oh, yeah.
Since 1991, and here we are. Let me do some math here. 2001, 11, 21, over 30 years.
Yep.
Yeah, I had to do that just like that with the 3 fingers. So
do I.
Here you are, and still doing this thing and helping folks. And big part of our story here today, I think, ties to a lot of individuals. As we've kind of discussed already on the front part of this, as we get into EMS, you really got to buy in. It's a lifestyle, and you got to care about other people. I think that's what makes you a great practitioner, is actually caring about what's going on. You know, you don't go through the motions. You're not cookbooking it. This is like a real person, and you're connecting with them. Yeah. And you don't always have all the tools you need when you start out, but you should have that same desire, and you're going to learn, and experience will give you that. And then hopefully good mentorship will build on that. And so when you start anything in life, the fear of the unknown is just that.
Yes.
It's fearful.
Fearful.
And you don't know.
No, you don't.
And sometimes you just got to jump in and go for it and see what happens next, and then
hope you grab it and hope you learn from it.
That's it. And so as a new paramedic, I will be honest with you. So I was nervous, like I think most should be, if you understand the gravity of what you're doing.
Scared to death.
You should be. But that fear should motivate you to focus and to work hard and to constantly study and to ask lots of questions.
Definitely.
And that was me. I will admit, I was ate up with it, if you want to say that. I was the new medic that had the scanner on his hip, walking around Walmart. I know. So it is funny.
Okay, I could see it.
It is funny, but I loved it so much. It was like somebody had pulled the curtain back and was like, "This is who you are, Chris Camp." And I'm like, "Yes, I love it." I had my own jump bag in my car.
Still do.
And had all my gear in there that I could have. I didn't have the tube and the roll like some people had. I didn't have my own stuff but I had like bandaging material stuff, bags of fluid, whatever. I was ready to rock and roll at any moment. And so even though straight out of school as a paramedic, I started on an ambulance. I was working in Eudora on the fire service. Well, I was on the EMS service. They were separate.
Yes.
And I would volunteer with Walls Fire, and I worked EMS paid. But I kept my scanner on me. And if I was in the area and I heard a call go out that sounded serious enough that it could use extra hands, I would respond a lot because I wanted to help and I wanted to learn and I wanted to see stuff because I knew that that's the only way that you're going to get better.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk about 2001.
One of the worst years of my life.
What was the month? Was it December?
December 2nd.
That's what I was thinking. December the 2nd. Yeah, I remember it being in late. Knew it was somewhere around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was Christmas.
So December 2nd.
It was a Saturday. No, Sunday evening.
Sunday evening. I was sitting at my mom and dad's house. They lived in Twin Lakes at the time. And for the listeners, I've never...
Spit it out.
I've never shared this story with you.
Okay.
I remember sitting in their living room and the scanner goes off and it was a car wreck at Dean Road
and Fog Road.
And I knew that I was not far from it. I knew that I could probably get there close to the time the ambulance would get there. So I jumped in my car and took off. And sure enough, as I'm pulling up, the ambulance had been there just a few minutes before me showing up in my car. And I jump out of the car and go up, and a pickup truck that with a lot of load on it had skid through a stop sign and T-boned a vehicle coming in the east direction and hit the driver's side door. And I get out and I go up, and the person in the truck was fine. They had gotten out of the car. They obviously were clearly upset. It was just too much load on a vehicle, and they skid through the stop sign and hit the vehicle. And the individual in the car was trapped, and the door was pushed in and pinned on them. And so when I got there, they were trying to assess the situation, figure out what was best and how to pop the door and get them out. And I remember hearing the EMT driver call for a wing. And so I got in the car, as we do, to hold C-spine, which is holding the head to keep it straight. Again, I was not on duty, so I didn't have turnout gear or any of that stuff. So I just jumped in the back of the car. I'm holding C-spine. We got a collar. We put a collar on. They were still trying to work on popping the door. And so there was another few people that started to show up on the scene. And I remember somebody taking over C-spine for me as I started to do the best you could do of a head-to-toe assessment to look for injuries while the person's still in the car, which is, not easy to do. You're not going to see a lot of stuff.
No.
And as I started to go through that, I remember someone bringing over a bag of fluid. And I can't remember if we got vital signs at that moment, but I did recognize the situation to be significant enough we needed an IV anyways. So from my memory, I can't remember if it was me or someone else. We started an IV. We had put him on oxygen. We were doing all the things we could do with him still in the vehicle. And at a point, I remember the radio traffic saying that the wing still couldn't take off because of weather. So it was still grounded. And we made the decision at that moment that if we could get this door open and they still were not off the ground, we were going to head to the hospital because we felt like we could beat the wing from flying and landing and then having to get back up again. And sure enough, we were able to get the door popped open. And I just remember Stephen crying a lot and grabbing his stomach. And I kept saying, "We got you, buddy. We're going to get you out of here." I'd only been I'd only been a medic for 3 months. And I was scared, but I didn't want him to know it. I just felt like he needed somebody to be strong in that moment, so we kept talking to him. And we got him extricated from the car. And once we got in the back of the unit, or the ambulance, we had heard that the wing still hadn't taken off. So we started down the road, and we were in a little van ambulance, which those things can go really fast, and there's not much room to move.
Nope.
And we were doing our head-to-toe assessment on him when I realized he had some bruising in his abdomen area, and his abdomen was extremely rigid, and he kept trying to pull his legs up. And the only way he would get relief is if his knees were up. So I remember releasing his leg straps so he could pull his legs up some to give him some relief off of his abdomen. And I started another IV on him en route. And he stayed awake the whole time talking to us. And I remember his vital signs stayed stable. And I just kept saying, we got this one. We're gonna make it. We're gonna be okay. There was no other visible injuries on him. You do a head to toe and you don't see broken bones, and you have stable vital signs. He's talking to you. He's alert. He's oriented. You've got 2 lines going. His O2 sat's fine. You think to yourself, this one's going to make it. We got this one. This is fine. And we got to the hospital. We transferred care. And then the ambulance took me back to my vehicle. And I went to my house, went back to my parents' house. And they were like, you were gone for a long time. And I said, yeah. We ended up having to transport a kid. He was hurt pretty bad, but I think he's okay. And it was about 3 or 4 hours later, I got a phone call from the ambulance crew, and they said that the kid had died. He was 17.
18.
18.
Yep.
And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't think, what else could we have done? What could we have done different? What could we have done faster? What could we have done better? And I couldn't see anything that we could have done different. And it just didn't seem fair. And another part of this, Miss Teresa, that you don't know is I didn't believe it. And when he had his visitation in South Haven, I came to it. And I remember walking down and looking at your son.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe it was the same kid.
Yeah.
There was no way. There was no way.
He had no outward injuries whatsoever.
I just couldn't wrap my head around. How can you do everything right and everything goes smooth as it did and you still lose? How is that fair?
It's not. But then again, life isn't fair. I found that out.
So, Miss Teresa, I know that it was gut-wrenching for me. And it was one of my first calls and I was a new medic. That does not come to any close comparison to what it must have been like to be the mom and to be a paramedic and to understand all the things that take place and to have so many questions. And so sharing all that with you at this time that you've never even known, and what I realized was you didn't even know I had made the scene.
No, I didn't.
This is our first time talking about it. I'm going to open the floor to you to talk about your experience and ask any questions.
Yeah, I mean, that happened about 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
I got the notification it was almost 7 because I was at home. It was a ritual for us at that time. He had gone to spend the weekend with his other mother, is what I called it, his best friend's mom. I saw him Friday, and that was the last time I saw him alive. Because by the time I got to the med, they had to rush him into surgery. And they, of course, took us back to that stupid room that they have. And I mean, all of his friends, I mean, we were not alone. I mean, me, Steve, my mom, my priest, and all these kids that I had no clue who half of them were there. And they came about 9 o'clock and said that they had done everything they could, and he passed away.
And so, what were the questions you had wanted to know in that moment about the wreck or your son?
I asked him everything. I asked him, what happened, because they let us go see him. And of course, his belly was huge. Mm-hmm. But I just flat out asked the doctor, I said, what happened, And he said there was nothing anybody could do because the wreck had sheared his abdominal aorta off of his his left kidney, and his left lung was nothing but hamburger meat. That's why he died. They could not get it to stop bleeding. He bled to death. And I was sort of glad that the wing couldn't make it because, they would have tried to start a chest tube and he would have just bled out right there. Mm-hmm. And that would have been, what's sad is I was thinking about Mark and, after I found out who had done the call, I said that would have been the worst thing for him. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, you got a chance and if you get to surgery, but even surgery wasn't enough.
I can tell you from being on the scene that there was absolutely, and this is one of the things I would want to know as a father, is there was nothing that was wasted. The timelines, as far as from the assessment to even starting IVs or putting them on oxygen the moment we could get him extricated, because that actually took a few minutes to figure out the best way to pop the door so that we didn't cause injury, because it was really concave. Obviously you saw the card.
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of it.
And it was not an easy extrication. Oh,
I imagine it wasn't.
And as you know, volunteer departments, you don't have big rescue equipment a lot of times show up. So it was a very coordinated effort.
It was. I mean, I'm glad for everybody that was there. I mean, the fact that he was awake and somebody was with him the whole time, and knowing now that you were there, that helps.
And I think that's part of the story that I want paramedics to know is sometimes you do everything right and it doesn't go the way you would want.
No.
But this is the other side of it, where you have a family member that is comforted by the fact that they can know that somebody was there that cared about them, was with them to the end, and never gave up, never thought for a second that this wasn't worth it. And we honestly, I never in a million years would have thought that he wasn't going to make it. But again, you can't see internally.
Right. Because that's what I was surprised of when I saw the car. I'm like, there's not a drop of blood. Mm-mm. It blew me away. Literally blew me away.
It took me a while to wrap my head around not just going through the call like you do, and it's picture memories that you can close your eyes and you can see every single thing.
Yeah.
And I just could not think about how can I continue to do a job where you can do everything right and it doesn't work out. But what you start to realize, and I know that you would agree to this, is God has a plan.
Yes.
And we can't always figure it out to do the things that, if God has a plan for something,
there's nothing you can do to change it. It's already written.
And that's what I had to come to terms with, that I would do my best on every single call.
Yes.
And I would realize walking away from it, if it was meant to be, then it was meant to be. And I would just make sure I was as good as I possibly could be every time I got toned out.
Right. That's all we can do. I mean, if you don't, then this job will kill you.
It's tough to wrap your head around. It's hard to process.
It is. I mean, it's a tough job to begin with, but if you think that you could save everybody, no. It's
just not reality.
It's not. It's not going to happen.
So what are the days, weeks, months after that?
For the first month, I couldn't tell you I mean, I don't even remember that whole month.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a blur. I mean, luckily, I had a lot of friends and family. I mean, and the fire department was great. I mean, I had the support of everybody at that place, and I couldn't have done it without them.
And so going on your first calls after that.
What was sad, one of my first calls after that was a car wreck. I froze. I mean, I literally froze. And since I hadn't gotten a phone call, at the scene or anything, I made sure that I handed that kid my phone and said, call your mom and tell her what's going on and everything. I mean, and after that, I mean, the excitement for 911 wasn't there for me as much anymore.
Yeah.
But I still wanted to care for people, so, I kept on for a while, and then things didn't work out at South Haven, so I left there and went to Le Bonheur.
What year was that?
2004, I left South Haven, we'll leave it at that, and I started Le Bonheur in 2005.
And you share with me a little bit about how, as the years went by,
yeah,
you struggled a little bit.
I struggled. I mean, I was on antidepressants. They worked so much, and then one day, I'd been having a rough time at Le Bonheur and everything, because you see kids up there dying all the time. Mm-hmm. But apparently, according to what I've been told, I didn't process everything like I should have. And one day, I was sitting in my car at work at Le Bonheur and said, nope, I can't do it. So I drove home, went to my doctor. He goes, what's wrong? I said, he goes, you want to kill yourself? I said, I don't want to kill myself, but I said, if I walk outside right now and there's a truck coming, I said, I'm not going to stop him. I said, I'm not going to get out of the way. He goes, okay. So I went and spent the week at Parkwood.
What was that emotion like? Because I think to myself sometimes, and I don't want to put this in I don't want to say these words for you, but I'm just looking at it from my perspective. Sometimes you get in your mind, and now obviously you're dealing with grief, which is, it's an emotion that unless you felt it, there's no way to describe it, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. But I think sometimes as a first responder, we have this bravado, and I don't know that was playing into it, but you don't want to ask for help because you're the one that gives help.
Right. I mean, because there was, like the year my son was killed in 2001. Well, the next year, my dad died. He died from grief of losing my son, because that was his first grandchild. And that played into it. And then, I was having to be strong for everybody, my mom, my family, and everything else. And it just finally, I was like, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And at that time, I mean, my husband didn't like to talk about work. When I left work, I didn't have somebody I could go home and talk to because he didn't understand. Yeah. And him and the sight of blood didn't get along together. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I just kept it all bottled in and didn't talk to anybody. So when I went to Parkwood, I mean, they helped. I mean, granted, they over-medicated, but that's another story. Right. But they did teach me that, I can talk about it. There's people I can talk to, and it helped me. I mean, I'm glad. I mean, and ever since then, I mean, running has helped me big time. I mean, that's my favorite outlet.
When did you pick that up?
Believe it or not, we had just merged with the fire department, and the guys used to always go out every day and run. I'm like, I've never run before. I said, can I try? And they're like, come on. Yeah. So I did. I mean, and I loved it.
And it stayed with you? I
have been running now for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's close to mine. And it's much the same as far as like, that's the thing that I do.
Yes.
To decompress and to get away from stuff. And the harder the time or the harder the day, the harder I will run. Right. To create more pain.
And the hotter it is, the more I like it.
And then I will feel, you feel like refreshed almost.
Yes. I mean, I don't listen to music. I don't run with anybody. I talk to the man upstairs as I'm running. I'll get a song in my head, because I have my son used to always, he loved Creed. So that was my, I'd get one of their songs in my head and get going.
And so people see an individual here today on this video, and people that have known you for years, you have a great attitude. You're happy-go-lucky. You love people.
Oh, I love people.
You embrace life.
I have to.
And you have a lot of reasons to be sour.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because 2011, my daughter was in a car wreck. And now she's a quadriplegic. So, I mean.
And how old was she at the time?
She turned 25 in the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah. Her wreck was the 9th and her birthday is the 14th of March. Yeah.
So you dealt with that in 2011. And I know that in January of this year, you lost your husband to a
Well,
heart attack.
he had a heart attack in January. I lost him
in
February 5th. Yeah.
And I knew of that, of course, from,
Yeah.
I keep up with you. We're friends.
And then, I mean, what a lot of people don't know, I had a daughter die at 2 weeks old.
I did not know.
Yeah. I've had 4 kids. Now I've got 2 left.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you've gone through immense trauma.
Yes.
And I think the question that people would want to know is, how do you keep it together besides running? Because I think that you need to have some healthy outlets, yes, but
Yeah.
it's more than that.
It's just, after Stephanie's wreck, it was like, really, what more? They say God doesn't put on you more than you can handle. And I've asked him several times. I mean, I don't weigh much. I can't handle much more.
Yeah.
But it's like, apparently there's something I haven't done yet that I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm getting from it. And when Steve died, it was like, okay, I was real close to saying, all right, this is it, but I've got to take care of Stephanie because I'm not putting her in a nursing home. And it's like, apparently he's still got something for me to do, and I wish he would give me a little bit of sign to let me know. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I plan on, I'm going to figure out what it is.
I think part of it for me, just seeing you from the outside, is you're a symbol of strength. You're a symbol of perseverance. You're a symbol of purpose. A person can always reflect on themselves and think that they're victims of stuff. But what I have seen just from knowing you for over the last 20-something years is that you're a person that has never lost the path. Some people get so far off the path that they let things that have happened to them become who they are.
Yes, no.
And that's not what you've done. And I think people need that. And that's why God has given you the strength to keep going the way that you have. People can see something in you that they may not see in themselves. And they recognize, hey, if this person can keep moving, so can I. And I've spoken to so many individuals over the last several years that I've started doing the podcast and then the other speaking events, that one thing that I can learn from other people is that life's not a competition.
No.
So people should not look at someone else and think to themselves, well, I don't have it as bad as they do. But what you should do is look at another person that may have things more difficult or been through some tough stuff and think about what's their secret, why they keep going, how are they still strong, why do they still have a positive attitude, how can they still care about life? Because that's where the strength is yes. embedded. And we can all draw from each other.
I have grandkids that I live for now. I mean, and that's my life now. To see them and grow up, which I wish they'd stop growing so fast, but...
Yeah, well, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too fast.
They're really quick like that. I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old grandson and granddaughter. And yeah. And they're busy.
Tell me about it.
They're busy. And what I realize is now I used to make fun of the grandparents that were sleeping while the kids were running around the house tearing up. No. I am the grandparent sleeping.
I can't say anything. I do the same. No, they keep you young, though.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the other part about it, I think, is the reflections that you get in life from one phase, one season, as I like to call it, to the next.
Yes.
Is your perspectives change so much, and then you have a more profound appreciation for the smallest of things.
Yes.
That you would have never thought twice about when you were younger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I go outside and see dragonflies, that reminds me of Stephen. And if I see a cardinal, that reminds me of my husband, Steve. So it's like, and then now me and my granddaughter were out in the pool a couple weeks ago, and she was like, Mama, there's Papa over there on the fence.
Talking about a cardinal.
Oh, yeah. And I just started bawling. And then she put a cardinal on my phone.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. She goes, Papa's with you always.
Yeah. That's awesome. And how old is she?
She'll be 10 next month. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I knew this was going to be a tough story to tell, but when I thought about the ramifications of what you've been through and how that could help and inspire and encourage someone else. I felt like it was too important to not at least approach you with the idea. And so it does mean a lot to me that you would be willing to share this. And I'll be honest with you, I wish I would have reached out to you sooner to let you know about the things that I was a part of with that. I guess to a point I just didn't know how to bring up the conversation.
A lot of people are afraid to talk to me about that. And it's like, I might break down and cry, but guess what? You're supposed to.
Sure.
I mean, I have learned that. That's one thing I used to not do was cry a lot. But now, it doesn't take much.
Yeah, my viewers will tell you that. I cry all the time.
Yeah,
But it's okay because I think that that's a human emotion you should express.
Well, I was taught, back then it was, don't stop your crying. I'll give you something to cry about.
Sure. Yeah.
But now it's like, my mom was like, before she died, she was like, you've done good. She was proud of me, and that's all that counted.
That's right. Well, Teresa, I know that you have a lot of years left in the tank, and the legacy that you will leave behind, and this is what I like to think that I'm doing here, is not something that's about me. It's a bigger picture. It's a bigger, broader spectrum of not just the podcast, but I'm talking about Coach Camp life period.
Life in general.
Period.
Yes.
I'm hoping that the legacy I leave behind is one to inspire others for generations to come to do good things, to go outside their comfort zone, to pursue a life that is full and purposeful,
yes,
and helpful to others. Because in the end, that's all we really have on this earth is just a short little snippet of time. It's so small.
I know. Like I've got a neighbor, I cut his yard, and every time I get through, he's like, how much do I owe you? I said, nothing. He goes, there needs to be more people around like you. I said, that's the way I was raised.
Yeah.
If I can help you, I will.
Yeah.
And I love helping.
And you're a testament to that for all your years. Well, we are near the end here, Ms. Teresa. Is there anything else you would like to add, talk about, or leave my listeners with as moments of encouragement or thought?
Just reach out to anybody if you're needing. There's so many people now to talk to. Preachers, everybody will. I have learned that that's one thing. People will listen. And if you got to pick the right one, though, because some of them will.
That's true.
Use you for no good, but there are people that will listen to you and can help.
Yeah.
Just talk to somebody, because don't do like, I did. And because I was serious. If a truck had been coming, that was it.
Yeah. PTSD is very real, and
Yes.
it comes in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And in our career field, of course, we're exposed to a lot of stuff, but then you had personal life trauma that related to what you actually responded to. So you're right. And I think that things are better. I can't say that we know statistics, but from where we were 30 years ago to where we are today,
Things are all
the idea that mental health is important and the avenues that you have to go and try to find help is a lot more plentiful.
Oh, yeah. Believe me, I will tell everybody that in a heartbeat. I have the mental health shirts, everything. I wear them with pride.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big part of what I like to bring light to as well, is folks that are out there that are going through tough times. You right now, look, the statistics, I believe last I looked, was 22 soldiers a day.
Yeah.
Commit suicide.
I hate that.
Go get help. Ask somebody for help. And I know it seems like that's easier said than done, and it probably is, but reach out to somebody.
And it doesn't have to be the VA.
No.
Reach out to anybody.
Yes.
There's too many people out here to not talk to.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And your message will matter, and you will get through this storm. You will get through this storm.
Yes.
Ms. Teresa, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some
Thank
very
you.
difficult times. And look, I keep up with you too.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Yeah. I love you, sister.
Love you too, dear.
All right. Look, to my listeners, thank you guys for always tuning in, all your nice comments. Obviously, this is a very tough subject to talk about, but it's something that's so important, and I hope that this hit home for some of you. And if you are struggling with something, whatever that is, you will reach out to somebody and get some help, because right now is the time to do that, not tomorrow. Right now. Take action today. Look. Go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com. Please continue to tune in. Go to my YouTube channel, subscribe. And until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe